So hello everyone, welcome to this another video of this channel. I'm Abhishek Verma and you are watching Spring Basics with Spring Boot series. Today's video is going to be a theoretical video, and here we are going to learn how tight coupling and loose coupling are different from each other. Then we will see what is inversion of control, what is IoC container, and what are the various types of IoC container. Although this is a theoretical video, but I still request you to watch the complete video. If you wish, you can watch it at 2x, because the same concepts will be required for the next video where we will be doing inversion of control with the help of code. Now let's start with the presentation.
Okay guys, so let's start from the same point where we left in the last video. So here, as you can see, we have a repository IMPL which is implementing the repository containing a parameterized constructor accepting an int argument. Then I said that this will be invoked from the service IMPL. Now in the service IMPL again we have a parameterized constructor accepting the repository object, and this will be invoked from the demo. Now within the demo we made one object of new service IMPL, and then within that we created an object of repository IMPL, and there we are passing the integer, let's say as 17. So this is something which we did in the last video just with the help of Java. Now the issue which I told you here was of the tight coupling, because you were making object of one class inside another class here. So the issue was that now if I move from repository IMPL to repository IMPL2, which is accepting a string, so although I don't need to make any change in the service IMPL, because this also a trick we followed here, that we are directly providing the object of repository IMPL in demo, but still the problem is that we need to make some changes in the demo. And we also identified that it is just a small project of, let's say, 3 classes: demo, service IMPL and repository IMPL. In bigger projects, when we have around 10 to 20 repository classes, these many number of service classes also, these many number of controller classes also, then the same thing will become difficult. So hence this tight coupling becomes an issue when we are working in the industry level projects. And that is why most of the industry level projects are built with the help of Spring. Why so? Because Spring provides us something which is known as loose coupling. So here, let's see how to achieve that loose coupling, and we will also see what is inversion of control here. So same example, if I go here, again I'm having the repository IMPL, I'm having repository IMPL2, I'm having the service IMPL. Yeah. Now, so if you just try to understand the problem, what was the main problem, that why we were calling it as tight coupling? Just pause the video and type in the comments why I was calling it as tight coupling. The main reason of calling it as tight coupling was because we were creating object of one class inside another class. And why we were creating object of one class inside another class? Because we need to call their methods. If I need to call any method of service IMPL or repository IMPL, obviously I need an reference to its object. That's why I was making the object. So here, what if that we create a demo class with a main method, but instead of creating the object of service or repo there, somehow we move the part of creating the object outside the demo class. Isn't it interesting? So try to understand what I'm saying here. I'm saying from now onwards, I'm not going to create object of service and repo here. You will say, okay Abhishek, but then how will you call the methods? So I will say, I'm not going to create their objects, but somehow outside the class I will create the objects, and here I will automatically inject. So at the runtime, as per my requirement, I will inject those particular things. This is the same example where we say that whenever in your home, let's say you want to make some vegetable or any kind of other dish. So it's not a case that you need to have your own field where you are growing those vegetables, you are growing those crops, then you are cutting the crops, then you are processing everything on your own completely. Instead, what you do, when you want to need to make a vegetable, you go to the market, you buy the vegetable, and that's it. You don't need to have your own agricultural land for this, or you don't need to be a farmer in order to create that particular dish. As simple as that here. Okay, I mean, This example just came now itself. I didn't prepare for this. Yeah, but it came. So same way, we just need to inject the object of service and repository here. Now, since I need to inject those objects, I will say that these are my dependencies. So again and again in future, I may need to use the word dependency. So here my demo class is dependent on service and repository because I need their objects. Now I'm not creating those objects here. Instead, I will be creating them outside the class. So what we will do is we will create a separate class config and we will create the objects there. Then these objects will be automatically injected to my demo class as per my requirement. You will say that, okay, Abhishek, now also it is tight coupling only. You are just removing the creation of object from demo class to the config class. I will say yes, that is, but try to understand the reference. Demo class is a normal class which has some other job also. Similarly, service class is having some other job also. The main job of demo class is to accept input from the user or start your code and everything. The main job of service IMPL is to contain the business logic. Main job of repository IMPL is to connect with the database. But what is the main job of config? The main job of config is only to provide you those objects. That's it. Now, since it is the main job of config, you don't need to touch the config class again and again for different purposes. Its only purpose is to create those objects for you. That's it. Yeah. So objects will be created in config and you will import them in your demo class at the runtime. Yes. Now you see that I am not using the word object in my config class. Instead, I'm using the term as bean there. Okay. So now onwards, what we will do is instead of calling it as object, we will call it as bean. You will say, Abhishek, what's the requirement of it? So the point is, when we are using the term object, that means we are creating the object on our own. Yeah. So we are creating the object. Later on, we are managing the life cycle of object. Let's say later on, we may just need to delete the object also sometimes. Then we call it as object. But when the object creation is being done by someone else, here the someone else is the framework. So when the object creation will be done by the Spring framework, then we won't call it as object. Instead, we will call it as a bean. So that's the simple difference. Object means you are creating the object, you are managing it, you are destroying it. Bean means some framework will create the object for you. It will manage the life cycle. It may destroy the object also later on. And your job is just to get that particular bean or that particular object as per your requirement. Yeah. So I'm having one short video also where I have explained the difference for the interview question. So I'll provide the link somewhere on the top, but that you can see. So we will create a config here. Now how we will do that, how we will inject it here, that I will show you in the code. But before this, we call this concept as inversion of control. So here, why do we call it as inversion of control? Because you see, earlier it was my job as a developer to create the object in the demo class for service for repository as per the requirement. Now I won't create the object. Instead, I will just tell in the config class how to create object of service, repo and repo IMPL2. There I will just tell once in the starting. And then as per the requirement, I can get those objects from the Spring framework. Yes. So you see that now the control of creating, managing and destroying has shifted from you to the Spring framework. Since the control has shifted from you to the Spring framework, we call it as inversion of control. It is very important for the interviews. What is inversion of controls? Many people say they are experts of the Spring Boot. They don't even know what is inversion of control. So if you know it, believe me, you are even better than them. So let's see the official definition also for inversion of control. So the definition says inversion of control, or in short IoC. This means we don't have the control to create the dependencies. Instead, the framework will create for us. Again, dependencies is because my demo was dependent on the service and repository. So that is the dependency. So those beans, those objects will be created by the framework for me. Yeah. So that's the point here. Now, these dependencies are known as beans. As I said, that since now framework is creating it for you, that's why you will call it as bean and not dependency. Yeah, it's just a name change. Yeah, okay. So if that is fine, now let's see. The code that is responsible for doing the dependency injection is known as IoC container. So the point is that now I told you that there will be some config class which will contain the logic to create those beans for you or object for you. But the point is, how will you inject those beans to your demo class? For this, we are not going to say new of demo and get the bean for it. Instead, we will be taking help of some container here. Okay. So we will take help of a container. That container will be provided by Spring only. Hence we call it as Spring container or IoC container. In short, you can say that container in itself is a class which is defined in the Spring. Yes, and that will take the config class in the starting and provide you the bean as per your requirement. So that is your container. This is IoC container or Spring container, whatever you say. And many times people say, what is the core component of Spring? So this IoC container is one of the core component of Spring. Because you see, if there is no IoC container, why we will someone learn this Spring? Because someone is learning Spring in order to get the loose coupling. Now, how you are getting the loose coupling? Because of inversion of control. How this inversion of control is achieved? With the help of IoC container. So that IoC container is providing you the particular dependency. Now let's see. So this IoC container is, as I said, it is the core and it is the responsible for it for creating the life cycle of the bean. Yeah, so it will create those beans for you and it will provide them to you as per your requirement. Now you see generally what happens that whenever I'm running some particular code, so the moment I say new of this, my control moves to that particular line, the object is created. But when here this time I'm saying the object will be created by the Spring framework. Now how will Spring decide when to create the object? Should it create the object when you are required them, or should it make it in advance itself? I mean, just try to think this IoC container is like a farmer. Now what do you say, when should farmer I don't know the exact term, or that exact term is not coming in my mind, but what do you feel that when the farmer should sow that particular vegetable or that particular crop? When should they give the water to that particular crop or that particular thing? Okay, is it when you will say that okay, now I need to make a dish, so please provide me that vegetable? Okay, so it is not going to the thing that now farmer will start doing everything. Farmer will do it in advance, and then as per the requirement he will provide you that particular vegetable or that particular crop. Same is with the IoC container here. It will do the things for you in advance, yeah, and then provide you. Now the thing is, this IoC container is also of two types. Okay, there are two types of it. Let's see those two types. So one type is bean factory, other one is application context. So these are the two types. Now believe me, you don't in order to understand the Spring, you don't need to learn this table by heart as such. Okay, because this is not any college where you need to go for a particular exam of semester or sessionals and there you need to write an answer of 5 or 10 marks. But this is important for the perspective of interview. Maybe in future someone asks you what's the difference between these two. So at that time you need to be aware of it. Out of these, which one we will be using, that I will tell you at the end very soon. Okay, so when I say both of these are the IoC containers, bean factory also, application context also, then you will say, Abhishek, which one we should use? So the answer is that bean factory is a very basic one. Now try to imagine, initially Java was created, then at some point of time Spring was created. Now when Spring was created, they made something like a bean factory in starting. Okay, because even those developers, those creators were also having some basic knowledge only, so they created a bean factory. But in future they came to know, okay, that there are so many requirements which we need to fulfill. Now in order to fulfill those requirements, they need more extra features. So instead of adding all the features to same bean factory itself, what they did was they made the child classes of that bean factory. you can say child class or child interface of that bean factory, and hence application context is one of the child interface of that bean factory. So the difference is bean factory is a parent interface, application context is a child interface of bean factory only. So whatever the things you will get in the bean factory, same are available in application context plus some extra features. Yeah. Now here we are getting an interesting concept of solid principles. Yeah. So if you are not aware about solid principles, I'm covering them in detail in my 1-minute interview questions. So the link is available on the top. Yeah. So that application context is available here. So that's the number one difference, that bean factory you can assume as a basic interface, application context is a built-on interface on it. Another difference is that when the bean will be initialized. Now again imagine bean means the object. So when the object will be created by the container here. So when they created in initially as per the bean factory, so what bean factory does is that when you will ask for the object or for that particular dependency, then they will create the bean for you. Imagine that you are saying that okay, now I need to make a dish with the help of something like what dish do you like? Do you like potato? Do you like paneer, or do you like mutton paneer or whatever? Okay, so that dish you can imagine, and you can say that bean factory what it will do is you will say okay, now I need this dish. So bean factory will start doing each and everything for you. It will start sowing the seeds, then it will grow the thing for you, and then it will provide it for you. So that means here it is lazy initialization. When you will ask, then only it will provide, and then only it will create for you. On the other hand, application context is a little bit advanced. It says that obviously if you have somewhere mentioned in your code, that means in future you will require it. It is not possible that you have just mentioned in your code and in future you are not going to use it. So in future if you are going to use it, let me make it in advance for you, so that whenever you need, it will be ready for you. Now you only tell me which one of them will be faster, bean factory or application context. Obviously application context, because here the things are already ready. You just need to ask, it will provide. So it is eager initialization. Eager means it will initialize the bean, it will create the object in advance, and then it will provide you. This I will show you with the help of code also here. Okay. Then we say application lifecycle. So again with the bean factory I said that it was very initial thing. So it is not managing the complete lifecycle, but application context manages it. Then we say resource loading. So here the resource loading means that extra files. So your properties file, some XML file you need to load in future. So with bean factory you are getting some basic functionalities. With application context you are getting some advanced features. Yeah. Then we say auto wiring. So this auto wiring as of now you don't know, that is fine. Okay, we will cover, I guess in the after 2 videos we will cover this auto wiring. At that point of time you will come to know. As of now just imagine that for this auto wiring also bean factory has a limited support, application context is having a better support. Then what about other features? So you see that nowadays Spring is not only of creating a simple application. You can interact it with the database, you can make a web application out of it, you can deploy it on the cloud also. You can even deploy it on Docker, Kubernetes also, and in future we are connecting the same thing with the help of AI, ML, and these features are also coming. So Bean Factory was not ready for all these things. Bean Factory was having some limited support only. Yeah, but application context is created in such a way that in future whatever will come, it will provide the support to you. Okay, it may not possible that currently it will provide support to everything, but in future things will keep on changing and they will provide the support to those integrations. Then we say internationalization. So this means that many times what happens is that let's say you are creating a web application. Now that web application is used in India. Now within India also people speak so many languages. Okay, now for this point you tell me which is your native language. Okay, which is your mother tongue here. Okay, like Hindi or whichever language, Hindi, Urdu, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, you tell me. Okay, I mean just for the engagement purpose. So let's see. So same way here, what happens is that Bean Factory is not supporting that, which means that currently if I have made some particular website in English, then I need to run it in English only. But with application context, again, there are features that you can add some more things on it, and then the same application you can convert to some other language also. You can convert the same language to Hindi, Telugu, Tamil, Spanish, German, whatever the language you wish. Okay. Obviously, for that, you need to do some particular part of coding, but application context is supporting it. So now, overall, if you try to understand, which means that application context is better than Bean Factory because it was made after it. It's the same difference between the telephone and the iPhone. Okay. So you tell me, what do you currently use? Do you keep using the telephone? Do you carry the telephone everywhere with you? Or you are making usage of some mobile Android, or you are making usage of iPhone? Obviously, you will say we are using Android, we are using iPhone because it is advanced. It is having all the features which were provided by the basic telephone. None of you must be using telephone here. So same way, what happens is that later on, we will be working with the Spring Boot. So Spring Boot uses application context. So out of these two, Spring Boot is going to make usage of the application context. Now Spring Boot is going to make usage of application context. Why should we spend our time on learning the Bean Factory in detail when it is nowhere used? Neither anyone will ask you anything about it in detail more than this in the interview, nor you need to use it in your coding also. So there is no need for learning it in more detail, and that much difference is enough for you. So from now onwards, our focus will be on the application context only. Yes, I hope till that point it is clear. So in the code which I will show you, that will be using application context. Another thing is that with Bean Factory, so Bean Factory was very old. So this was more, comfortable with the XML configuration. But as I mentioned you earlier also, our focus will be on the Java configuration. So with Java, application context is much more comfortable. That's why also we will be focusing on the application context. Yeah, I hope things are clear with you. Even if you don't find you are not comfortable with this table, then only these two first things you just remember. That what is the container? What's the basic difference between those? This is basic, this is advanced, this is lazy, this is eager. Only that much is enough for you. No one will ask you more than this. If someone will asking, then they just want to trick you or they just want to confuse you.